You're listening to The Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with Lyndia Grant.
Well, good evening, Radio 1 listeners. Thank you for tuning in to The Lyndia Grant Show. Spirit 1340 WYCB, the oldest gospel radio station in the Washington, D.C. area, and it is the first contemporary gospel outlet in the United States. We've been around for 40 years. Today is Friday, August the 4th, 2023. Our show is heard throughout the DMV at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We're also on YouTube each and every week. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things. Welcome to today's show. I have an exciting show for you. My guests are Reverend Dr. Marquez Ball, pastor and senior advisor for National Action Network with Reverend Al Sharpton out of New York. He's here in the D.C. vicinity. We will be talking about the 60th March on Washington, and it's called A Continuation. And I want to say hi to Pastor Ball. How are you today, Pastor?
I'm doing quite well. Glad to be here with you.
All right, we're glad to have you. Pastor Ball is going to be my second interview, but first we're going to hear from Dr. Julianne Malvo. Each week, Dr. Malvo talks about the economy and politics. Just a little background on Dr. Julianne. She is nationally known as an economist, former dean of the New College of Ethnic Studies at California State University, Los Angeles. She's one of two president emeritus at Bennett College in Raleigh, North Carolina. She earned her PhD in economics. She's a world traveler, speaker, president of Push XL, the youth organization founded by Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson out of Chicago, Illinois, plus more. Hello to you, Dr. Julianne. Welcome back home. I just moved back to D.C. We're glad to have you. Welcome to today's show.
You know, Lyndia, I'm so happy to be back here in Washington, especially now. We're gearing up for election-related stuff. The economy is doing well, but not perfect. There are lots of challenges there. But it's just good to be back in Washington. This is the epicenter of world politics, frankly, and so I miss being here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But talk about headlines. Mm-hmm. Talk about headlines. I mean, this is an interesting time. First of all, our economy was downgraded by Fitch. There are three companies that basically grade economies, and we were at a AAA, which is the best. They've now taken us down to a AA plus, which still means it's not bad, but it's not great either. It means that there is world concern about the stability of our economy. Where does that come from? It comes from the big fight we had earlier this year about the debt ceiling and whether or not our economy was stable. Can we pay our bills? Do we have too many bills? Many say the issue is our borrowing, but others say the issue is just government instability. When you get the Congress down to brinkmanship just a few days before we're about to go broke or not to be able to pay our bills and say, oh, shoot, we can't pay our bills, that's not a good thing. And so no one is happy about what's happened. And worldwide, we've lost a lot of esteem, and that Fitch rating shows that up. How do we compare to others? Canada has the same rating we do, AA plus. China has A plus. So, you know, we're not the worst, but we've always been the best. The U.S. economy has been considered the world reserve economy, less so now. And so this is something we have to look at. Who else has a AAA? Microsoft Corporation, Johnson & Johnson. Those are companies that have a AAA. No government has a AAA, but we did once upon a time. And so that's not a great thing to have lost that. Now, the second headline, of course, we're so tired of this headline. The Orange Man has been indicted again. On Tuesday, he had a federal indictment. He has to show up in court, I think today, or Thursday, show up to plead guilty or not guilty or whatever he is. His defense is going to be, from what I understand, one of his lawyers was on CNBC last evening and said that he thought that Trump really believed that he won the election. And if you believe that he won the election, then he did not act illegally. And they also will say that he acted on advice of counsel. And so if his lawyers advised him to call on that rally on January 6th, if the court, if his lawyers advised him to do that, then he's not in violation of the law. But that would be difficult for him to prove And so anyway, here we go again with Mr. Trump. Meanwhile, of course, we are leading up to the 24 election, and the question is the timing of it. There are now 3 lawsuits against him, federal indictments against him. How are these things going to be timed? Now, the next thing that I would want to talk about very briefly, of course, is the whole issue of leisure. Why do I want to talk about leisure? Congress is out. Congress is out. They'll be out all August. We know that in France, the country shuts down in August. The average person in France has 20-some days of vacation, almost 6 weeks, actually, of vacation. In the United States, the average person has just 11 days of vacation. Of course, if you work for some companies longer than 10 years, you may have as many as 20 days. But starting out, many people have 2 weeks. Some have 1. Some have none, especially the people who are cobbling together part-time work. When you look at that, then you look at Congress and say, are they doing? Why can't we pass laws like they do in Europe? The European Union requires companies to provide 4 weeks, 20 days of paid vacation. We don't have that. It's not the top of the news, but it ought to be on the top of our minds, because when people do not have leisure, they don't know how to act. They haven't had time to reflect, to think, to hone, to be mindful, to get on top of their game. And we see a lot of this acting out in the workplace, people shooting up the workplace. The question is, will they behave better if they had more leisure time? Now, that's kind of a stretch. Someone might say, okay, there she goes again. But the fact is that when we look at Congress being out for the month of August, and it doesn't mean they're on vacation. Congressional people will be meeting with their constituents. They'll be doing things like that. But that's not the point. The point is, what does the average worker have? And we know that the average worker doesn't have much. This is the month of August where lots of places are closed. A lot of people are off. It's a good time to think about the role of leisure in our society. Want to talk about this extreme heat. Last year, which was less hot than this year, 62,000 people worldwide died because of extreme heat. Already, we're on the path to do even more than that. And here in the United States, Phoenix, 117 degrees. We've seen just extreme heat, people dying. We've also seen energy prices go up as people are using more air conditioning and it becomes less available. It's just a point of scientists are now issuing reports that say that there should be some action taken to reduce global warming, but you still have some people who don't believe there is any global warming. If you don't believe it's global warming, take yourself to Phoenix, why don't you, and see how you feel about that. We're really looking at a crisis situation that many in our nation have chosen to ignore. And so it's a challenge. I think that the last thing I want to talk about would be, Bidenomics is what he's calling it. President Biden, of course, has done very good work, as we know. I wish they would toot their horn a little bit better, but we know that there are lots of things, but for Biden, might have gone down differently. We're upset, of course, that we didn't get loan debt relief, but at the same time, we know that he's moved in the right direction with any number of things. But what are Bidenomics? What President Biden believes is that if you invest in the people by spending federal money on programs, that you'll get positive results. And if you look at the economy, we've seen very positive results. But the flip side of that is that we, of course, do have very high debt. Interest rates are coming down. The Fed is doing a great job of interest rates are going up, but inflation is going down. And we believe that the Fed is doing a decent job, not the best job, but a decent job in dealing with it. At the same time, even if there's modest inflation, who does it hit the hardest? Black and brown people. People at the bottom. People make less than $50,000 a year. And those folks are still struggling. And I don't think that economists, and especially federal economists, are paying enough attention to it. So whatever they want to call Bidenomics, is plain old economics. There's nothing magic about it. It's Keynesian economics pretty much with a twist. And, of course, we want to commend the president. He doesn't get enough credit. But at the same time, we want to advise the president, toot your own horn a little more, number one, pay attention to people at the bottom, number two.
All right, and then the last thing, Dr. Juliana, about a minute, about the 60th March on Washington coming up.
Oh, yes. We're so excited about the 60th March on Washington and want to commend those of National Action Network and others who are leading it. It really is very important for us to reflect on the 60 years and what has happened in 60 years. We've got lots of wins, but we've got losses as well. Just the whole climate right now, the war on black people, as the Congressional Black Caucus indicated last week in their press conference, the war on black people remains. It's not as pointed as it was in 1963, but it's still there. And so we want to commend folks, want to ask people to come out. And if you can't come out to Washington, come out in your local communities. Make sure that people understand that we still have a struggle. The struggle continues. We're not where we need to be. We still have double unemployment rates for black people. We still have black people earning about 60% of what whites earn. All of these things are relevant. And even when we talk about something like interest rates, we have a number of black people who are unbanked. About 1 in 8 black persons is unbanked, which means they have no relationship with a bank at all. Why does that matter? Because if you don't have a relationship with a bank, can you get a loan? There are just a number of questions to ask. So we still have economic inequality. And let's not forget the March on Washington was a march for jobs, peace, and justice.
Yes,
jobs. It was a march for jobs. Underline that word jobs, that we still have people looking for jobs.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Julian. We appreciate you, and we're so glad to have you back home.
Well, thank you, and I'll see you at the march, if not sooner.
That's right. Talk to you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Now for a word from our sponsor, so stay tuned.
If it wasn't for my care coach at AmeriHealth, I probably wouldn't be so healthy right now. As a man, we don't get checkups or see a doctor regularly anyways. It's probably just a man thing because none of my partners go either. We know we should, but we just don't, and hope it works out.
So what changed for you?
AmeriHealth assigned me a care coach, somebody that gives one-on-one help, answer questions, explain things, and help set my appointments. She also helped me understand what having high blood pressure really means and ways to manage it so it doesn't kill me. It ain't nothing to play with. If you're a member of AmeriHealth, ask for a care coach. I'm glad I got mine.
At AmeriHealth, if you need a care coach, you can have one. Just call us at 1-877-759-6224 to get connected. 1-877-759-6224. This program is funded in part by the government of the District of Columbia Department of Healthcare Finance. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Washington and former religion columnist Lyndia Grant.
Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated Montgomery bus. In lectures on brotherhood, Ms. Parks often said, "People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired." But that wasn't true. I was not tired physically. I was not old. I was 42. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. Driven out of Montgomery by harassment and death threats, Detroit, Michigan became her new home. Rosa Parks will always be remembered as the mother of the civil rights movement. Raised in the AME church, she once said, "I remember finding such comfort and peace while reading the Bible."
Read more in the religion column of the Washington Informer, an award-winning African-American newspaper. We don't report crime or gossip, just positive news. Pick up the Washington Informer or visit us online at washingtoninformer.com. Call 202-561-4100 for more information.
This is Frank Smith with the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C., located at 1925 Vermont Avenue Northwest on the Green Line. Did you know that a recent study found that children who visit museums do better in school and in life than children who do not? So parents, teachers, and preachers, let's get moving. I promise you, if you bring your children to the African American Civil War Museum, they will be inspired by the images that they see. They will be impressed by our living history reenactors who are always available, and they will be involved in our scavenger hunt that takes them throughout our exhibit. That's the African American Civil War Museum, 1925 Vermont Avenue. Our hours are 10 to 6:30 on weekdays, 12 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. See it. Be inspired.
And we are back. Welcome to the second half of our radio show. Today we are going to be talking to Reverend Dr. Marquez Ball. He is the pastor and senior advisor for National Action Network. Reverend Al Sharpton. He is working on a very important March on Washington. It's the 60th March on Washington. And this year it's being talked about as a continuation. Welcome to the show, Marquez. Tell us about this march that which all of the religious community are working so hard to get folks to come out.
Absolutely. Grant, again, thank you so much for this opportunity to share and for all that you do to make sure our community stays informed. You've been doing this for so many years, a major voice, particularly in the DMV area. When I first moved here, your column was one of the first ones that I was exposed to, so definitely exciting opportunity to be able to share today with you. So on August the 26th, we are continuing the March on Washington. This is the 60th continuation of the March on Washington, and it is so very important that our community understands what's at stake. Reverend Sharpton, I was having him meet with clergy in D.C., so 2 weeks ago we had a meeting, and he shared that his grandson is born with fewer rights than he had.
Wow.
So that's such a major setback, and I want us to make sure we are understanding that. So this march that Reverend Sharpton with National Action Network and the Drum Major Institute is calling us to is really to continue our fight for justice, our fight for liberation, because the difficulties, the challenges that we are facing are not decreasing, but they are increasing, particularly with rulings from the Supreme Court. We've seen what's happening in states across the country, particularly with Florida. Our time to stand up, push back, and to fight back is absolutely now.
Amen. And thank you for meeting with us, you and Ebony and Reverend Al Sharpton. We met almost a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember the exact date, but it wasn't long ago when Reverend Sharpton came down to meet with us, members of the religious community. Talk about that goal, what you all are trying to accomplish here, because I remember in my article I wrote about it, you all pick up the Washington Informer this week. We're writing about that March on Washington. But I know that because people are coming from around the country, we are hoping that the D.C. vicinity will help build the crowd even more than they normally would. Talk to us about it.
Absolutely. So I've been with National Action Network now 6 years, and I started working with religious affairs and planning a march where clergy were gathered to do a minister's march for justice. And so we continue in that, solely because the truth of the matter is I'm one of a theologian mindset that says God is on the side of the oppressed. And so I think it's important for those of us who are Bible believers to make sure that we are a voice for the voiceless, particularly in the African-American community. The black pastor, the black church is the voice for the community. And so without our presence, we're not really screaming loud about the issues of the day. And so we want to make sure that clergy is being heard in the public square. And so we are the major mobilizers of our community. When we think about the civil rights movement, the church was a vital part in that. And while we've seen a lot of social media sort of hashtags, and we've seen a lot of modern movements, the truth of the matter is the church is still the largest mobilizers, particularly of African-American people, but in general, it's the largest gathering spot of people across the country. So we really want to make sure that we encourage our local clergy, our local churches to take part, to register, and to show up for this march. So every time we have a march in Washington, I make sure that Reverend Sharpton tries to come in town and he meets with local clergy because, in a very real sense, Washington, D.C. clergy, Washington, D.C. churches are ultimately the host of those who show up to fight and to march for justice, because these people are coming into our city from across the country, and we don't want to be absent when someone else shows up to give voice for us. So we really want to make sure we are present in a major way. So in order for this to be successful, we do need our local residences, our local churches, local clergy to show up. That means to register. That means to make sure you are getting your seniors on buses. That means helping your young people get there, helping them also take part in history. I know that Washington, D.C. churches are filled with people, some who remember the March on Washington and what it was like to be a part of history. And they tell young people those stories. Now it's an opportunity for both older and younger generations to show up, to take part in this historic moment as we continue 60 years later, the March on Washington.
It's amazing, isn't it? Tell folks how they can sign up. They can register, go to your website. They don't have to register, I don't guess, but there is a registration link so you all can get a better idea of who's coming. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So everyone can go to MOW2023, MOW2023.com, MOW2023.com. There, you're able to register. You're also able to click if you're interested in volunteering. We need about 500 volunteers to make this a success. And so we encourage our local churches, our local organizations to step up to volunteer, that you are also able to make history that way. On that website, you're going to also see some of our co-chairs, the other organizations that have partnered with us. From a religious perspective, I will just say we've had several national organizations to partner with us. We have AME Zion Church, Progressive National Baptist Convention, Church of God in Christ, National Baptist Convention, African Methodist Episcopal AME overall. And so there's so many that are coming to be a part of this. So those denominations have also signed on to be partners with us as well.
There you go. All right. Well, I want to repeat that. If you want to register, if you want to, I guess if they want to bring a bus, tell them what to do. I don't know. I'm not on the committee. Tell them about that part.
Absolutely. So again, you're going to go to MOW2023, and on there you're going to see a couple of things. You're going to see an option if you need reasonable accommodation, meaning if you are in a wheelchair or that if you're hearing or vision impaired, we have services available for you. If you're looking to bring a bus, we encourage you to definitely go to that website. You can click there because a bus has to be registered as streets are going to be shut off for this march. And so we really want to make sure you're able to come and to drop off those who are riding, and it lets you know where to park your bus. And so there's a package available for that as well. If you have family members coming from across the country, you will see the hotel accommodations. All of that can be found at MOW2023.com. Again, MOW2023.com.
All right. Well, I think our time is up right here. If you want to give a closing comment, we're talking to Reverend Dr. Marquez Ball right here in the District of Columbia. He is the liaison here in the D.C. area for the National Action Network, and he has been meeting with religious community pastors, helping us to mobilize people from throughout the DMV. We can get a lot of bodies here without buses, and so we hope that you all would listen to his closing comments, and then we got to close the show.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to simply say on behalf of Reverend Al Sharpton, the National Action Network Board, thank you all so much, Washington, D.C., for your continued support of all that National Action Network does. On behalf of the Drum Major Institute with Martin Luther King Jr. III, he'll also be there. We invite everyone right now to go register and to make sure you mark your calendars to be present in Washington, D.C. on August the 26th. Again, MOW2023.com. That's MOW2023.com. God bless.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Marquez. I'm so happy you were able to come. And I was so happy when I got to that meeting and saw you. I said, oh, I'm in good company. I know Pastor Marquez because we've been working together on other things over the years. So it's always good working with you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. Likewise.
All right. That does it for our show this week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and never miss an episode. A copy will come to your phone or your computer automatically. Read my column in the Washington Informer newspaper. This week, we're talking about the 60th March on Washington. Give me a call at 240-602-6295. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. next week, we'll have another exciting show for you. And I am asking that you all would join us out at the All Nations Baptist Church every Sunday, my home church, where our pastor is the Reverend Dr. James Coleman. We're located at number 2 Rhode Island Avenue, Northeast Washington, D.C. And I am the Community Outreach Coordinator, and we are looking for singers. So if you can sing and you want to sing in our choir, please give me a call at 240-602-6295. We hope this show with Dr. Julianne Malvo and Pastor Marquez has been helpful to you. Earl Nightingale once said, words, thoughts, and deeds have a boomerang effect. So be careful what you send out. We do become what we think about. And Scripture says it this way, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So think on these things from the Lyndia Grant Show. I'm your host, Lyndia Grant. Until next week, good day.
Saturday, August 26th, people are coming from everywhere to join the continuation march in Washington, D.C. at Lincoln Memorial at 11 a.m. We have in the last 60 days seen the stopping of the use of affirmative action, stopping the forgiving student loans, rise in hate crimes, taking away women's right to choose. It's time to show a national pushback in a massive nonviolent march 60 years after the March on Washington by Dr. King that weekend. Join the march. If you need information, go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net or call 1-877-626-4651. Don't complain. Show up and stand up.
Thank you for listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with your host, Lyndia Grant.